fine. Now you talk.
I tell you, I woke up this morning and
I don't know if that's nobody's talking about that before. Well, I'm trying to, don't know where it's going to work.
Hey guys, what's going on? We got a full-fledged meeting going on here.
Well, we were
We
told
don't need an interruption.
we were told we could come up here and practice putting for the Cibo golf tournament at AB Tech.
Yeah, we were told you'd come to AP Tech and learn anything, and that this is the place to do our practicing, but gosh, I think we're in the wrong doggone room here.
we need a golf.
We can start.
You better be quiet.
We'll give it a start, see what goes on here. But, yeah, the Cibo golf tournament, we got to get in shape for that, because it's going to be a hard course, but it's a beautiful mountain championship course.
Cherokee, isn't it?
It's out in Cherokee, but they got a party bus taking you to and fro. And
Right.
It's going to be a good time. But listen, Charlie, I'm going to ask you about this golf club you got here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we got a member at Cibo. Looks a lot like this golf club.
Oh, yeah, you know what?
What do you call that?
Well, that's Dewey Andrew. And I'll just tell you that I have a live one just like that at home. And he's a real man. But we love him. We do.
So there's three of them then, I guess.
There's three of them, yeah. There's also one named Daryl Redmond, too. We're going to have Chick-fil-A for lunch, and then Granny's Chicken's going to do supper, so it's going to be a really good day. October 22nd, Cherokee, Cibo Golf Tournament.
I'll tell you what, guys, you just have a seat and listen.
Well, we'll look you all back yourself.
I'll let you use some of my pink balls. Does that sound good?
Oh,
We
okay.
practiced last year, you did.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, as you heard, Cibo's Patriot Golf Tournament will be held on Wednesday the 22nd at Sequoia National in Cherokee. It's a beautiful course, and it's October in the mountains. So we even have transportation. We have a bus to take you and bring you back. Food will be great. The tournament has all, and remember, a hole-in-one on the car hole wins a new vehicle. We gave one away a couple of years ago. We have room for teams and players. Check with Patty and Mike, and they'll get you signed up. Now, back to our program while we're here. We want to welcome North Carolina Speaker of the House, Tom Tillis, to our Power Breakfast meeting. Tom, we'll get right to it.
That is the best introduction I have had in years. I get so tired of listening to the bio that I I can't make an assumption, y'all know where I'm from and what I've done, but I tell you, after a while, I just like getting up and speaking with you. And I'm going to spend maybe 15 or 20 minutes talking with you this morning. First, I appreciate you being here. I've spoken before Cibo before, and last night, I just naturally assumed I had to be here at 7 o'clock in the morning. So we had an event last night here in Nashville, and I kept on telling everybody, I got to get home because I got to get up at 7. Now, y'all almost made a strategic mistake by letting me get here at 8:30, because I got up this morning around 6:30, 6:15, and I was at a friend's house looking out this gorgeous view of the valley, coming up with ways I could apologize for missing the event this morning. When you get out here, it's very easy to just really get caught up in the beauty of this part of the state. And you know, we've got beauty across the state, but the mountains are very special to me and Susan. When we're not on Lake Norman, we're normally here if we're anywhere else in the state. I've got something to be proud of. And you've got something to be proud of when it comes to all the work that you're doing. A lot of people I know here in this room, the work that you do in the community, the work that you do. Many of you come down to Raleigh fighting for this region, for legislative matters, and I appreciate all the work that you do. I'm going to come to you from the two different jobs that I have right now. One of them is Speaker of the House in North Carolina. The other one, I'll make some comments on my race for the Senate. But let's start with just a brief legislative update. Before I do that, I want to recognize my colleague Nathan Ramsey, and I don't see is Representative Moffitt here. Yeah, there he is. I figured he'd be here. And also Representative, I call him Bulldog, but Bill Briley from Mecklenburg County. 3 House members that just do extraordinary work, and Nathan and Tim both, I think, are 2 of the best examples of quality folks that are going up to Raleigh and working hard and really working hard to protect the interests of Western North Carolina and the rest of the state. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for your service, and best of luck in the election in November. I also want to recognize my wife of 27 years. She's the only reason I could have possibly ran in the House, and the only reason I could possibly consider running for the Senate. Sweetie, thank you for being here. Well, finally, 2 of the finest words that could ever be said in politics are sine die. We adjourned sine die last week, and we were glad to go ahead and move out of session so that we can go back and do the things that we have to do. We all have jobs and things that really should keep us back home. We got a lot of work done in this short session. We've gotten a lot of work done over the last 3.5 years. And I think that we're seeing the results of some of the tough decisions that we've had to make, whether it was tax reform and some of the tax cuts, spending reform, trying to reduce the cost of government, regulatory reform, medical malpractice reform, tough decisions that we've had to make around unemployment, and the impact of that being 5 straight quarters of reductions in unemployment from 10.4, third or fourth worst in the nation, now to the national average at 6.4. We're putting people back to work. Our job creation numbers are second only to Florida and the Southeast. Our batting average for corporate relocations and business expansions is one of the best in the Southeast. Our tax burden has gone from 44th to 17th. Our regulatory burden is now getting in line with the states that surround us that we compete for business. And I feel like North Carolina is better positioned than any other state in the nation for economic growth, in spite of the continued difficulties that we have nationally. We're very proud of the work that was ultimately done in this session in terms of creating an average 7% pay raise for teachers. We're trying to do 2 or 3 phases that are often not caught in a soundbite or an editorial, but are very important for everyone to understand. The education, the raises this year put our starting teachers competitive with any other state in the Southeast. The raises next year put us at near the national average for starting teacher salaries. We had to bias a lot of the average is brought up by virtue of the fact that we had to do the right thing for teachers who have for several years had their pay frozen. They came in at a time, actually prior to our taking the majority, when the step system was frozen. So there were teachers out there for 5 years and not received a raise. We had to get them back to a good baseline that was competitive in the region and in the nation. We also had to make up for the teachers years 6 through 9 who were also caught in the same situation, while other teachers 10 and above were receiving some longevity pay increases, but not any other net pay increases. What we've done with the policy that was passed this year is to try and get our compensation curve up to regional competitiveness and national competitiveness, and I think we've done that. Now what we have to do is unlock the step system, which we did, so that going forward, next year teachers can move up the steps and get pay raises and have them funded just by the turnover of teachers retiring and plowing that money back into paying our other teachers more year over year. And I think we're on a good course to do that. The way that we were able to do that was to make the difficult decisions over the past 3 years to get to a point to where we could better predict our Medicaid liability. In 2010, the Medicaid shortfall was $750 million. In 2014, the Medicaid shortfall was $75 million. It has successively gone down each of the last 4 years. And I think next year, we're going to be pretty close to hitting the target. So it's no longer that surprise. It's nothing more heartbreaking as a legislator than to come in on opening day and say, you know, things are looking good. If we hit our number, we're going to be able to pay our state employees more, we're going to be able to pay our teachers more, and then you get this $500 million surprise like we did last year, or the year before last. Now that we balance those books, I think we've got a better financial foundation, and we're going to be able to move forward on continuing to increase our state employees, be the best employer in the state. That's what we should strive to be. And be a state that clearly recognizes that education and public education is the bedrock of job creation and creating freedom for the people who are going to school, getting a good education. Now, I also have to mention, I love being here at AV Tech. I did a town hall meeting here about 3 years ago. I love being back at AV Tech because it reminds me of how I got where I am today. I actually didn't go to college straight out of high school. I got a high school diploma along with 3 of my other brothers and sisters. 3 of my brothers and sisters did not get high school degrees. 2 of them went on to get a GED. But I came up in a family where you got a diploma and you either went into the military or you went to work. I was going to go into the Air Force, but I had an automobile accident about a month before I went in the delayed entry program. And I was released from the Air Force before I ever served a day, honorably, I might add. But then I went to work. So when I was 19 years old, I was working in a warehouse, service merchandise over in Nashville, Tennessee. And I recognized very quickly not going to school was a really dumb thing to do, particularly a kid who was in the Honor Society and the Beta Club and graduated 14th out of about 400 kids. So I decided to go to Nashville State Technical Institute. And then I went to Chattanooga State Technical Institute. Then I went to University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Then I went to Georgia State University. And at the age of 37, I got my 4-year degree. About a year after I'd been admitted to the partnership at Price Waterhouse. Now, why do I tell you all that story? I tell it to give you some sense of my background, but also tell you that story because it drives my policy agenda. When I come to Raleigh and when I go to Washington, I'm not thinking about the corporations or the wealthy. I'm thinking about the 19-year-olds that are working in warehouses and living in trailer parks today that need to be presented with the same opportunities that I was presented with in 1979, in circumstances very similar to what we have today. Those of you who were alive and politically aware back then, you know that we had a situation not unlike what we have today. Issues with Russia, issues in the Middle East, issues with energy policy, issues with unemployment, financial issues, the same kinds of challenges were confronting us today. And we saw in the 1980s, by having Republicans and Democrats work together, we laid the groundwork for some of the most prosperous times that this nation has ever experienced. And I believe that we can do it again. I believe we can do it by being right, getting regulations right. Regulations, environmental regulations, workplace regulations, they exist for a reason, but when you overreach, you put people out of work. And you all have a great case in point here, Evergreen. Second to the last bill I signed before the adjournment resolution was a bill I ratified that actually has addressed the challenge that Evergreen was going to have out here because of the EPA's imposition of regulations that could have put this business that's been here for decades, almost a century, out of business and about 1,000 jobs with them. That's an example of where perhaps we needed to get Evergreen to the state where EPA wanted it to, but in a time frame that wouldn't put people out of business. And that's precisely what would have happened. So I really appreciate the support of my members and the hard work of Nathan and Tim, who were advocating the last day of session to make that happen. We also have to recognize that in the rural areas of the state, more than anywhere else, I come from Mecklenburg County, but I've spent a lot of time trying to appoint people from the west and down east in the rural areas, because that's where we need to focus most of our resources. We need to work with and collaborate with the urban areas. But the hardest part right now that we have in the state, the most difficulty we have in the state, the areas that have the highest rates of unemployment today still are in the rural areas. And we have to look at policies that provide economic developers, many of you in this room, chambers of commerce and others, with the tools that they need to attract and expand business in the rural areas. In fact, one thing that we will most likely do, and we're talking with the governor and the Senate leaders, if we can come back and address the JDIG, it's a job development grant, that will be particularly important to rural areas of the state and the western part of the state in particular here, to help you all have the tools to go out and encourage businesses to create jobs. Now the legislature is done for the year. There may be a couple of a special session. It would be, if we have one, the timing and the focus of it would be very tight. It would mainly be focused on some of the things that we need to address around economic development. And I know that the House and Senate is open to that. We're talking with the governor to see what more we can do. But for the most part, I think we're done for this legislative session. And if I were to sum up the 3.5 years, almost 4 years that I've been Speaker, I would sum it up by saying that we've fulfilled the promises that we made in 2010. When I came out here and was running across the state to try and get us to a majority. I will also tell you that, contrary to what a lot of people will tell you, much of our success has been founded on bipartisan support for a lot of our initiatives. Many people don't know this, but it started even with the formation of the House and the formation of the House rules. A unanimous vote, 120 to nothing, on the permanent rules that govern the House. You can go back in history and find very few examples of where we've had all 120 members come together on the rules that guide the House. And the reason for that is the rules invariably showed respect for the minority. When I came in as Speaker, everybody was talking about the rules and the permanent rules. I said, guys, I've been here for 4 years. And for 4 years, I've heard y'all talk about the unfair rules that the then majority was imposing on us. So I want every single one of those rules repealed. If you want to add a few other technical rules, that's fine. But if it was unfair when you were in the minority, then it's unfair now that you're in the majority. And I think that's the primary reason that we got 120 members to vote unanimously for the rules that govern the House. We went on to work very closely with Democrats and then Governor Perdue. We went on to get 18, that's 1/3 of the Democratic caucus, 18 members to vote with us on one or more veto overrides. They were veto overrides that cut $1.5 billion in spending, about $1 billion $1 billion in spending, $1.5 billion in taxes. They were veto overrides for medical malpractice reform, regulatory reform, and a very long list of business reforms that I believe that the members of the minority recognized were necessary and important, so much so that they would join with the Republican majority to provide the needed votes. We did not have a supermajority in the House at that time to get this nation, to get the state's economy back on track. And we went on to do that more in this second legislative session. If you go back and take a look at some of the more controversial, or they were portrayed as controversial bills, I think you'll go back and see in many instances we had great bipartisan support for the agenda. And people ask me what I'm most proud of, what bill I'm most proud of. It's not any one bill. It's the fact that I count as friends and colleagues and people who have a meaningful difference in policy, many of the Democrats that serve in the legislature. And that is something that's sorely missing in Washington. We have a leader in the Senate who decided, instead of making the rules fair for the minority, to make them more difficult. The so-called nuclear option, Senator Reid supported last year and that Senator Hagan voted for. We have got to get to a point where we get these people talking, because if we do, that's when we'll be able to make the kinds of changes that were made when I was living in that trailer park. When President Reagan came on the scene, reached across the aisle and worked with Democrats, worked with Republicans, and initiated the kinds of reforms that turned this economy around and took me out of that trailer park into Price Waterhouse, into IBM, made me Speaker of the House, and now I'm running for the U.S. Senate. I have great confidence in Americans, and I have great confidence in America. What we need to do is get back to recognizing that the solutions to the problems that we have today are not things that are born out of good ideas among politicians. They're born out of hard-working Americans, their hard work, and their commitment to this country. And if we just get back to those basics, I have no doubt in my mind that those 19-year-olds that I wake up every day and think about today, and the 20-year-olds, and the 40-year-olds who are still trying to pursue the American dream, and 54-year-olds like me, that we've got to lay the groundwork to let them do that. And if we do that, I have every reason to expect that 3, 4, 5 years from now, we will look at this like in 1985, I looked at 1979. We can get past it, and we can move to a great time for this nation, and we can reemerge as the leader globally, economically, be the leader in terms of stabilizing what is an unstable national environment or global environment right now. Just get back to the good times that I know we're perfectly capable of doing and doing on short order. So I want to thank you all for letting me come before you today. I want to thank my members, the members here and all of the members, Democrats and Republicans, who have joined together to make more progress in North Carolina, in my mind, than any other state in the nation. And I know that because I get to the speakers of the House once a year. Democrats, Republicans, one I'm not sure what party he is, but we get together and we have this one session where about 40 of us get together. There's about 8 or 10 that miss it every year cycling through. We have this one session where they ask there's no press, there's no video, there's no staff. Just 30 or 40 speakers of the House that get to talk shop for about 3 hours. And the first time that I went to that session was 2011. Just after we had finished the reform session in 2011, we did the tax cuts, regulatory cuts. We were getting a lot of press on it. And I was one of the last people to be introduced. And everybody was talking about what they were worried about, what their priorities were. And when it got to me, I'd made friends with many of them, so I was comfortable with saying this at a personal level. I said, guys, every single day I wake up trying to figure out how North Carolina is going to beat you in any one category. Whether it's our tax burden, our job creation, our regulatory burden, our education system, our university system, community college system, every single day I have people working in Raleigh figuring out how we're going to best you in any one category. Now, I hope that you take that as the friendly challenge that it is, and you do everything you can to get your states to being competitive, because that creates pressure on me to continue to get better and better. But make no mistake about it, that's what drives me, and that's what I hope drives my colleagues next year. I believe that they will, because we understand that North Carolina should not play second to any state in this nation. If you just look at the beauty of this state, our education system, our economic resources, the resources in this room, and you believe in them, and you do everything that you can to enable them to really realize the greatness of this state and the greatness of this nation. So again, I thank you for being here. I thank you for all the work that you do for this region and for the state. I would appreciate your support in my run for the U.S. Senate. And I look forward to getting back out here many more times before the election, and even a lot more times after the election. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thanks much, Tom. We really appreciate it. We don't have time for questions, but he said that he would be here for a while and be glad to talk to you individually. So we had a great meeting. Attorney Latrella, thank you very much for your gift. And let's go to work, folks.